This is The Baseline, discussing the hot button topics of the NBA. Welcome, everybody. You're tuned to The Baseline. Lee Warren Shaw discussing the hot button topics of the NBA, and the button is ever hot. Special edition of The Baseline NBA podcast. And obviously, you know why we're on board. Because clearly, the Milwaukee Bucks have said we are on board. We are on board with trying to make this run for a chip. So the birds are chirping, fish are flying out in Portland, and the sun may actually set in Phoenix. Either way, this unprecedented trade has to be discussed, and who none better to do it with than my right-hand man, www.shawsports.net, Big Kahuna PNC, my man, Mr. Warren Shaw, ripping out of Fort Lauderdale, Florida. What's good, Mr. Shaw? It didn't take much, man. Didn't take long at all. They must have heard us talking. They must have knew we were coming to the media day, and they said, we need to make this thing happen because they don't want our smoke. We were ready to ask the tough questions. We're ready to put them on the spot. And now,
yeah. And now, right? We still got some tough questions that can be situated. But if this is any indication of how our season is going to go, as we record, putting stuff out there, then news is going to break. Oh man, we are not new to this. We are true to this. So absolutely. We are here back, ready to rock with another episode, locked and loaded, to discuss this monumental blockbuster trade that breaks on a afternoon in the middle of the week, just days before NBA Media Day. Family, let's get it popping.
Yeah, absolutely, man. So if people have been paying attention to their Twitter feed, or if they have access to a phone and didn't realize it just blew up because, again, another Woj bomb, dropped out of nowhere, or if you've been living under a rock and don't know what's going on with your life, just know Damian Lillard will no longer be a Portland Trailblazer. A big blockbuster trade moves Damian Lillard to the Milwaukee Bucks in a big 3-team deal that involves the Portland Trailblazers and the Phoenix Suns. The Milwaukee Bucks will get Damian Lillard. The Portland Trailblazers in return will receive Drew Holiday, DeAndre Ayton, Tamani Kamara, Bucks 2029 first-round pick, unprotected, swap rights of the Bucks 2028 and 2030 picks, and the Phoenix Suns will receive Yusuf Nurkic, Grayson Allen, Nasir Little, and Keon Johnson. So, Shaw, I know that we're going to discuss the dynamic of Damian Lillard with the Milwaukee Bucks, but I think the first question I want to ask you is this. How and why would the Phoenix Suns want to involve themselves in this particular kind of deal? When you look at the pieces that they wind up receiving, and they're nothing to sniff at, right? But when you look at it holistically, do you really think that this truly adds the type of depth that this team is going to actually need for their run at a title? You know what I'm saying? When you look at the pieces that they've received in return?
Yeah, I think that the point you touched on right there is the depth, right? And the main thing that cannot be ignored in this situation is the moving off of Ayton and what a sour relationship. He was overqualified to be their fourth option. Just flat blank. He's too talented to do that. So you bring in a guy who now in Nurkic who can just kind of play that role, complement guys, rebound, set screens, even can pass a little bit, and it's just not going to be too fussy about it. I think it's one of those addition by subtraction situations because while Ayton and Monty Williams weren't going to have to go head-to-head anymore, there's still a lot of bad blood in that. So Vogel doesn't have to deal with that situation in any capacity. He can start fresh with Nurkic. And then you get, Nasir Little into the situation. Grayson Allen comes into here as well, too. And you just kind of fill out the rest of that bench. Now, they did a good job even the offseason with Watanabe and even Bol and guys like that, Damian Lee coming in. But they just get a little bit more out of that. And then, like I said, in that starting lineup, get somebody who's not going to be a malcontent in the way that I think a lot of people thought Ayton was going to be, playing alongside Beal, Booker, and Durant.
All right. So now let's talk about the Blazers, right? We knew that this was going to happen. did you expect Drew Holiday to be a get for the Portland Trailblazers? And how do you see that complementing a young Scoot Henderson? I know we're going to talk about the dynamic of also having a DeAndre Ayton, but I'm more curious about having a guy like Drew Holiday on this team with Scoot, because now I guess what you're saying is Scoot's now your Damian, right? Scoot is going to be your two guy to score that basketball, and Drew is going to be the leader of this basketball team.
Well, the streets are talking, my guy. And if Holiday remains in Portland for the entire season, I think there would be a mild surprise to that. Now, he's obviously a pro's pro and can do a lot to help groom Scoot Henderson and even Anthony Simons if he remains there. But I think Portland would at least be doing themselves a disservice if they didn't at least test the market. Teams are going to be interested in Drew Holiday, and he doesn't fit with your proverbial timeline right now. None of those other guys you mentioned are, over 30 and he's 33. So to me, while you could utilize him in a way to kind of help groom, he's probably served being filtered on, and even for this stage of his career where he can continue to play for NBA championships. So already the vultures are circling Miami. Well, hey, Portland, you didn't give us Dame. Would you give us Drew Holiday? They're going to become calling. I just got off of an amazing conversation with our guy, Gary Washburn, for the Globe. And I think we're in both agreements in that too, that Boston should absolutely be kicking the tires on a potential acquisition of Drew Holiday. Like, well, there's no reason they shouldn't at least call. And it's going to cost them Brogdon and maybe Al Horford in essence to maybe pull something like that off. But that is a deal that could potentially really, really match them up with Milwaukee if you don't think they're there, but put them over the proverbial top as well, too. But there's other teams, too, outside of Boston and Miami that should be calling for Drew Holiday. So that's my take on Holiday. Portland should be trying to flip him.
Well, absolutely. So let me say this. I bet you now Brad Stevens is wishing he probably didn't move a guy like Marcus Smart, knowing he probably had to move Marcus Smart if he wanted to make any big splash to improve that roster for the Boston Celtics. And I don't want to get on too much about the Celtics, but I think it leads us into the move that the Milwaukee Bucks make in getting Damian Lillard and what that does for this basketball team in our perception, or the idea that they are the front runners in the Eastern Conference, right? Here's how I'm looking at this. If you add Damian Lillard to that basketball team, right, to the Milwaukee Bucks, there is seriously a mismatch problem now offensively that teams are going to have to contend with now, not just from the front court position, but also from the backcourt position. The one thing that you can kind of hang your hat on when you had Drew Holiday is he was a defensive bulldog. He pretty much was the face of that team defensively when, Giannis, would be the dominant force that he was, offensively and doing what he does defensively on the basketball court. But you really think about how that team defensively came together. It was because of the clutch guard defensive play that Drew Holiday gives you. By all accounts, it feels like they're going to completely abandon that idea, and they're just basically going to have it any way that they want from an offensive standpoint with a guy like Damian Lillard. And I challenge you to find anybody right now in the Eastern Conference that's going to be able to match up with the backcourt, front court combination of a Dame Lillard and Giannis Antetokounmpo when they're on their game. There's no team, not even the Boston Celtics, with their duality of wing players, are going to be able to handle the kind of offensive output I think the Milwaukee Bucks are capable of having night in, night out. It's just a matter of whether or not it can flow and whether or not Damian Lillard is buying into this. My thing for you, Shaw, when you think about this, if you're the Boston Celtics, if you're the Philadelphia 76ers, if you're the Miami Heat, how do you change that dynamic? Like, where would you be seeking yourself? And I understand the idea is it could be kicking the tires around for Drew Holiday, but where would you see yourself if you're one of those teams now basically trying to play catch up to what the Milwaukee Bucks just have recently done?
All right. Well, I think it's, do you feel like you are playing catch up? So here, obviously we're jumping around here a little bit too, but in my humble opinion, Milwaukee is better, and I know Vegas has already moved the odds and has put them as now the odds-on favorite to win the NBA championship. To me, they did lose a lot of depth. They are, still an older team on top of it. And yes, they may be able to fill out whatever depth they lost. We know with some other veteran guys or people looking to chase an NBA championship. All those things hold to be true. But they are, to me, 5 to maybe 10% better, and that's still a lot when you're already as good as you are and chasing an NBA championship. But I don't know if you're panicking if you're Boston. I don't know if you're panicking if you're Philadelphia or whatever situation the Sixers are actually in. Miami probably is panicking because that's the guy who they ultimately wanted. So now can they flip and try to figure out a way to continue to get better? Where Milwaukee is going to make the most amount of hay is not alone from the Damian Lillard side. It's from any improvement of Chris Middleton returning back to his norm.
Yeah,
That's the kicker. If Middleton is any type of the guy that he used to be, then Milwaukee is, oh shit. But I think if you're looking at Middleton from last year and just adding Dame to that mix, they are only slightly better and definitely better than they were last year, obviously losing in the first round. But to me, it's about Middleton's overall not even improvement to his mean, because he was well below his mean in the last season. So that's where I think the other teams have to kind of compare themselves, and maybe they won't do anything here now in the next 5 to 6 days before media day starts. But if they start to see, oh shit, Middleton's back, and then so now you're going to start to see them maneuvering, 15, 20 games, and obviously going into the trade deadline.
Let me ask you this question. Do you think that having a guy like Damian Lillard will help elevate what we're hoping to see from Chris Middleton? In other words, I am not saying this to say that Jrue Holiday was not capable, right? But Jrue Holiday in his own right, remember how I was telling you about how Jrue Holiday in many respects can be considered like as a 5-tool type of guard. He does so many things well, but sometimes he doesn't, when you need him to do something extraordinarily well, like hone in on one particular thing that's necessary for the immediate need of the team's elevated success. It's like you're probably not going to get that in most situations, right? And it's not going to be sustainable. He's a great all-around player, with his calling card being that he's just a great defender and he is a solid scorer. But when there were moments where it called for him to be the man, it was hard for him to do that, right? It literally took like Giannis going down to injury before that happened, right? When it came to him being like more of a play creator, creating for everyone else, that wasn't his calling card. Like that isn't his necessary thing. He's a great leader, but as far as getting guys to their spots and getting guys to get their shots or putting guys in the best positions especially when they were shooting cold or anything like that, that was never really Jrue Holiday. You know what I'm saying? I'm just wondering, would you see in Dame Lillard, because Dame Lillard will make that sacrifice play if he knows that for them to get to a certain state, to be in a certain space, he'll put that guy in that place, right? He did that when he was with the Portland Trailblazers. He did that for CJ McCollum. He did that for Nurkic. He did that for a plethora of players that have went through that Portland Blazers, rank and file. So my question to you is, do you think he can replicate that? And that to me would be the outlier, and why I think a lot of people see the favorite, seeing the chip, so to speak, go through Milwaukee this time around.
Yeah, I don't think that's something that they're going to be overly concerned about in terms of Dame's ability to create for others. I think he will acquiesce, I think, to the way that he needs to, and can still give you 28, 30 a game while still giving you 7 dimes, 8 dimes, and getting people into their spots. I think, again, it's just what types of looks does he manufacture? And Milwaukee is, a season or two away from being one of the better 3-point shooting teams in the league. Again, they did lose some shooting with the loss of Grayson Allen into that, but if Milton can come back, Brook Lopez can stroke it from the 3. Bobby Portis also can hit the 3 ball as well. Lillard's gravity offensively is greater than what Jrue Holiday could bring. So just by virtue of that alone, those guys are going to get open and better looks. And I think he can create that in that capacity, even if it's not even if he's not the one making the pass, the hockey assist, just by the gravity of how the defense is going to have to rotate by having to respond to wherever he is on the floor. I think that's going to make the Milwaukee Bucks better, and probably one of the better, even 3-point shooting teams, or just better shooting teams in league this season.
All right. So we've broken down Portland. We've broken down the Suns, and we've broken down Milwaukee. In your opinion, did everybody win on this trade?
It's two to be determined, I think, right now, right? So it's kind of flat. I've seen everybody putting grades out there. Some people giving the Bucks a B plus, some giving them an A minus because everyone's like, well, they got him, but there's still still a little bit of hesitancy in it. So it's like, but you have to do it. There's a chance to acquire a Hall of Famer. You just kind of have to. And so I think for where everybody is at, the deal does seem to make sense. I think Portland can become big winners if they're able to flip Drew Holiday on top of it. And not say that they'd be losers if they don't, but I think that would be like the true utmost maximizing of that situation. You turn,
But
Damon to Ayton and, all the picks and so forth, but then do Drew and then get 2 or 3 more picks on top of that, then that's A plus.
Well, I say, and I agree with you. I think that we have to kind of reserve our assessment, so to speak, until we see what the final play is. And ultimately, I think the cards are truly in the hands of the Portland Trailblazers with the assets that they received. It's almost kind of like they're holding, their hand and they're leaving it face down and waiting for the other guy to basically, say he's going to call it, he's going to push his chips all in before he just makes his play, right? So it's interesting because I wonder, Shaw, will DeAndre Ayton truly improve being on this basketball team with the makeup that it has? Regardless of what they may or may not do with Drew Holiday. But it's almost as if they played it safe. If DeAndre Ayton flakes out, right, they still have a play where they can get more assets moving Drew Holiday, and they also still have draft picks, to work with so that they can turn around and flip that. But I really think that they want to believe that having a guy like DeAndre Ayton complement Scoot Henderson is going to be the future for the Portland Trailblazers, and couple that with some veteran leadership for the whatever time frame that's there will accelerate, Scoot's maturation process. Well, I tell you, man, it's weird because we've seen how teams, suddenly have like this reawakening, so to speak, like the Utah Jazz. Like they just come out of nowhere and just have a surprisingly good season with some young, hungry dudes. And then all of a sudden it forces the executives to accelerate their timeline on what they were planning to do, whether it be move a player or probably push some chips in and even go further all in to the idea of what they want to do. And look, the Portland Trailblazers are in a division where it's gettable. You know what I'm saying? It's kind of gettable where if they're hanging around, and then all of a sudden we start talking about, well, they should steadfast. And next thing you know, these guys are buyers, It's a very interesting play. You could almost make the argument in a way that Portland is the winners for this because they have so much flexibility, right? They have time on their side, but they also have assets that I think other teams are going to be drawn to by the time the trade deadline approaches.
Yeah, very much the case. Absolutely. And I think if Cronin assesses the entirety of the situation, he realizes like he's in a very, very good position right now. I'd be interested to see, though. I think, Chauncey Billups, being the old veteran guy that he is, he's probably going to want to keep Holiday at least for a little while, right? Just to kind of bring some semblance of maturity to that locker room. Not only Scoot, but remember, Shaedon Sharpe is still young. Even Simons is still a young guy, right? Drew can really be the adult in the room. And, not that Jeremy Grant can't, but I think when you trade, 2 guys in their 30s like Damon Nurkic, it kind of signifies a youth movement is on there. And Holiday, only by virtue of the success he's had previously, you feel like, okay, they should probably just try to do him a solid. But maybe they hold on to him at least for a little while to kind of see what they are and see how he can impact some of those young guys. And then they ultimately move him on at a later point in the season. But I think all bets are on, everything is on the table right now. We could see him move before media day or sometime obviously before the trade deadline, or maybe not at all. But I think Portland is definitely in the driver's seat when it comes to that. And I want to ask you one question, because some people think it's an obvious answer to this, but just your take on it. I live obviously in the South Florida area. Make no bones about that. Heat Nation is in a weird place. Some of them are like, well, we didn't need Dame anyway. Some of them are burning Pat Riley's jerseys. You know what I mean? Like they're mad at the Godfather saying he's not doing enough. They've missed out on Donovan Mitchell. They've missed out on, Kevin Durant. They've missed out on everybody who's ever wanted to come to Miami. Bradley Beal. Where do you stand on this? Do you think the Heat failed? Did they fail and overplay their hand by not acquiring Damian Lillard?
I don't know how you might say that they failed. I think that the Miami Heat organization, I don't want to say the Miami Heat fans. Miami Heat fans, they stick to what they see. They stick to what they know, right? But the Miami Heat, in my opinion, are who they were, right? They get what they want. They don't consider what they may need, and sometimes that might mean giving up a little bit in order for them to satisfy the need. But they're always in a position of we get what we want, right? And if we don't like it, we don't need it. We don't like it, we don't have to have it. We'll make do. We'll figure out a way to do without. You feel bad sometimes for the Miami Heat fans because they can never get it easy. It can never come easy enough. It usually probably the last time that happened was what? When they got Shaq? You know what I'm saying? And it was D Wade. But D Wade made it easy. D Wade was always, always favorable to the Miami Heat organization. He was basically like the Tom Brady of basketball for the Miami Heat. He made it easy for them to go out there and make certain deals and put certain things in play so that they can get the kind of talent that was necessary for them to win those championships. I know a lot of people make this thing out to be like, oh, and I know I don't want to belabor the point about what we're saying with the Heat with your question, but I'm just highlighting how the Heat's history has been that they have set the demands in a way where it's been favorable for what they want to do. But if you really look at it, anytime that they've put together something where they've had to, I don't want to say mortgage the future, but let's say they had mortgage a lot for something that that a lot of people felt would be, in their best interest or favorable on their side, rarely ever happens. So, I don't think they failed. I think that they're just, hey, they're stubborn as hell. They're where teams are going to ask for a mile, they're giving them 3/4 of an inch and nothing more, nothing less, right? Or 3/4 of that mile, nothing more, nothing less. And at the end of it, if they don't get what they need, they're gonna keep it moving, you know. So
I think there's no doubt that they'll still find a way to be successful this season. But when a guy wants to come to your team, a guy of that caliber, it makes it that overt that he wants to be there. I do think Pat Riley and the Heat overplayed their hand slightly. They just felt like nobody's going to be able to match this. He wants to come here. Cronin being a rookie general manager or whatever the case may be, will be able to finesse us in a way, and they'll just have to take what we want.
But do you think though, Shaw? I don't want to get into any conspiracy theories. I know it's been a while since I've been airing that one out, but do you think in some way, shape, or form, Pat Riley played to the idea that he felt like there was an inside track for the Miami Heat to have to in making this happen? You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't want to insinuate that they were doing anything quote unquote illegal. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I forget what they're calling what you call that when you're talking to or talking about players or under contracts. Yeah, tampering. There you go.
Well,
I don't.
Did you see Jimmy Butler?
Well, and but again, Pat Riley's old school, right? He's old school. Let's not act like
Fam, but hold on. Did you see Jimmy Butler? Jimmy Butler comes out the minute the trade is up, says, and he's on IG or the KCB, and he's like, "Hey, I want to be that guy, but the NBA, you might want to check the Milwaukee Bucks for tampering." I'm just saying, how the f can the Bucks tamper in this situation with a guy who openly said he wanted to go to another team? How could they have tampered? It doesn't even make sense to me right now.
Right.
So
I understand, but again, my point is, and look, that's just spin, right? That's spin.
Miami is a
That's
different type of situation, man.
and you can see how it's influenced. You know what I'm saying? Guys who are already mercurial as it is to be coming out and doing quote unquote mercurial things.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Putting it lightly.
But listen, at the end of the day, though, Shaw, the Miami Heat, I think in our view, I think they did overplay their hand. I think that, but let me preface it in this way. it's hard to imagine what it would be like if Damian Lillard did come to the Miami Heat and it still wasn't enough, or it wasn't good enough for them to get themselves to that championship. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, I feel like everybody probably would have wanted it to happen. Damian would have wanted it to happen. But I just wonder if whether or not Pat Riley really wanted it to happen. You know what I'm saying? Like, we don't know whether or not Pat Riley loves him some Damian Lillard. If Pat Riley is,
Well,
and this is still Pat Riley's team, it's still his organization. To hell with, you know what I'm saying? Listen, Jimmy Butler may believe that, you know what I'm saying? Hey, I came here, I'm about, you know what I'm saying, carrying the torch, Wade City, Wade County, and all this other kind of nonsense. But Pat Riley, like, at some point, he's going to probably have something to say about the fact that they have fallen short a few times. You know what I'm saying? Because the only person he never speaks low on is the people that he put in the position that he's put them in. Eric Spoelstra, you know what I'm saying? General managers, anyone that Pat Riley has had a pulse on, a finger on, to establish the culture that they have. He doesn't talk badly about them. You know what I'm saying? They may not be there any longer, but he doesn't talk badly about them. But he'll talk badly about some players. He'll
yeah.
speak on the fact that some of them players are asking for too damn much. You know what I'm saying? If given what he has given them, or what he believes that he's given them. So part of me also thinks too that it's not just about the fact that the Miami Heat would have been better having Damian Lillard. It's a question of whether or not, Pat Riley would have been on board with it to begin with anyway.
Well, I mean, understood. And Lillard was going to be owed $60+ million in the final year of his contract when he would have been like 35, 36. So there is some, I don't know, some tenuousness to that. Like you can't be like, oh, I absolutely want to do that. But it's a tough situation. I don't think Miami would have been all that much better themselves, even with Damian Lillard. I think there was some, I don't know what the word is. Not delusion, because it's not that. Because maybe some a little bit of overconfidence, though. I don't think the East was right for them to run the table like that again, and I think they understood that as well. And trying to, after losing Strus, after losing Gabe Vincent, now Dame comes out, said he wants to be there. I think there was some pressure to kind of get that done, but Miami's a proud franchise. They're still going to be successful. They'll be above 500 team, and they'll be pesky no matter what roster they have out there, for sure, especially with Jimmy Butler and Bam Adebayo leading the charge. But I just don't know that we can expect them to run the table like that as currently constructed. So I do think they're going to be seeking another deal after this Damian Lillard thing went south on them.
Woo. Shaw, final thoughts, man. What are we speaking on of the dynamic of this trade? Look, I want to say this real quick too. Big trade, no question. But I don't think that this trade, to me, I think, because the only player that was involved is Damian Lillard. I think what surprised people more is the fact that it was the Blazers and Suns and the Bucks. I think that's it. It's the Bucks and the Suns, and the fact that they were the ones involved in this deal. Maybe in some way, shape, or form, we probably would have made a big deal about it if Miami Heat were involved, because we would have been like, finally. And then what did Miami have to give up in order to do it? And then if it wasn't right, we would have been questioning what the hell was Portland thinking and what they got back in giving up Damian Lillard. But I don't think I necessarily look at this trade and say to myself, damn, the world is going to be completely shook. Like, some people are actually talking about how this just completely changed the paradigm in the Eastern Conference. Look, the Milwaukee Bucks were still going to be a top 3 team. Nothing has changed from that. What we're talking about is whether or not the other teams have done as much, if not more, to put themselves in an early contention conversation about being able to run with the Bucks. Because when it's all said and done, we're probably going to say that the Milwaukee Bucks will be among one of the top 3 best teams in the Eastern Conference, maybe one of the top 3 best teams in the NBA. You know what I'm saying? But when it's all said and done, are we saying anything any different because Damian Lillard now is on the roster and no longer Jrue Holiday?
Yeah. Well, I mean, again, that's what we talked about earlier, right? So, what percent better are they now, if any? And I think that is a debatable question. We need to see it play out on the floor. But Dame, he has this amazing gravity about him. He's one of the better leaders that we've seen in the NBA for a very long time. And I think he's going to fit in right alongside Giannis. And then the caveat to some of this too, as we not only the Chris Middleton aspect, but they also have a new rookie coach in Adrian Griffin. And does he even know how to mesh all of this? This is a lot. He's been given a lot of good things. You wouldn't want it to be the antithesis of this, but now you have to manage these MVP level Hall of Fame talents on this roster in a short window that is championship lead. Like, you are about championships. You're not about making conference finals. Definitely not about just making the playoffs. It's about championships. So there's a lot of pressure on this roster, but I think Dame is built for it. I know Giannis is built for it. And I think, we're going to have our answers pretty early on to see how they mesh and how they put this all together.
Well, we'll say this much. They can't get knocked out of the first round.
That's a disaster. That is a disaster. I don't care who they play.
That happen. Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. Awesome show this week, Shaw. Awesome shows this week, and awesome discussion given the circumstances and obviously the breaking news with regards to Damian Lillard being moved. And listen, man, we're going to continue to keep it moving. Obviously, this is going to make Media Day even that much more interesting. What I'm saying? So there will be much to talk about, and I can't wait for you to make your rounds, and then we sit here and we rehash those. And find out what the tea leaves are shaking loose in the NBA as we get ready to get ourselves kickstarted with another exciting NBA season.
As I kicked it off, man, if this is any indication how the season's going to go, it's going to be a wild one. It always is. So, but again, we're built for it. We're ready to rock, man. And season 11 NBA Baseline, we're here for y'all. Can't wait to discuss Media Day. I know it's going to be a lot of great conversation coming out of that on October 2nd. So make sure you tune in with us next week.
Absolutely. For the Baseline, Callie, Warren Shaw, we appreciate you guys hopping on board with us in a special edition discussing the big deal. Damian Lillard moved to the Milwaukee Bucks, and definitely catch up with us on the next go around here on the Baseline.